Do you know what separates a good player from a legend? What if I told you it's all in the mind? Kobe Bryant wasn't just a basketball player. He was a symbol of relentless dedication, a man who turned every challenge into fuel. Today, his story can teach us how to train our minds for greatness, on and off the court. From a young age, Kobe was obsessed with being the best. While other kids slept or played, he stayed in the gym, perfecting his shot over and over, long after everyone else had gone home. He faced failures, missed baskets, and tough losses, but each one became a lesson, a stepping stone. Kobe visualized success every single day. Before every game, he imagined every possible scenario, every move, every counter, every triumph. His mind became a training ground as important as the court itself. He pushed through pain, fatigue, and doubt, not because it was easy, but because he believed greatness demanded sacrifice. He embraced the grind when no one was watching. This mindset, the Mamba Mentality, wasn't just about basketball. It was about resilience, discipline, and the courage to keep going when the world says stop. By the end of his career, Kobe didn't just leave behind trophies or records. He left a blueprint. Greatness starts in the mind, grows through effort, and shines through perseverance. The early morning air was crisp, almost electric, as if the world itself sensed something extraordinary was about to awaken. In the quiet streets of Lower Merion, Pennsylvania, a young boy stood alone on the cracked asphalt of a neighborhood basketball court. His worn-out sneakers pressed into the rough surface, the soles thinning from countless hours of practice. The basketball he held was scuffed and faded, a reflection of his own countless attempts and failures. Yet to him, it was a vessel of possibility, a key to a world only he could imagine. Kobe Bryant's eyes, sharp and unwavering, stared at the hoop. Every detail mattered. The angle of the backboard, the slight tilt of the rim, the way the morning sun glinted off the chain-link net. Other children his age might have been dreaming of cartoons or baseball games, but not him. His dreams were larger, heavier, and they demanded everything. Even at 12, he understood that greatness wasn't given. It was earned, meticulously, one repetition at a time. He began dribbling, the rhythm of the ball striking the pavement like the heartbeat of his ambition. Left hand, right hand crossover, spin. Every movement precise, deliberate, a dance between mind and body. Each shot he took carried a story. The countless times he had fallen, the bruises, the late nights when no one was watching, and the relentless desire to rise above it all. Sweat dripped down his brow, soaking his jersey, but he barely noticed. Pain was a minor inconvenience, a signal that he was alive, that he was stretching the boundaries of what he thought possible. As the sun slowly climbed higher, casting long shadows across the court, Kobe's imagination transported him beyond the cracked asphalt and faded lines. He saw roaring arenas filled with thousands of fans, the echo of the basketball resonating off polished hardwood floors, the bright lights of stadiums illuminating every move. He envisioned himself there, not just playing, but dominating, turning obstacles into opportunities, doubts into fuel. Every missed shot in reality became a successful play in his mind, and with each imaginary victory, his resolve strengthened. At home, the faint sound of his mother stirring did not deter him. She knew her son was different. She understood the fire burning in him, the relentless obsession that drove him past exhaustion. She had seen him spend hours alone in the garage, practicing shots on a makeshift hoop, whispering to himself about angles, spins, and strategies. She didn't intervene. She only watched, silently admiring the seeds of greatness taking root in the determination of a young boy who refused to settle for ordinary. The neighborhood kids would sometimes gather at a distance, whispering to one another, curiosity painted across their faces. How does he do it? They wondered. Yet Kobe didn't seek attention or approval. He wasn't performing for anyone. He was sculpting his future, building the foundation of a legacy that would one day inspire millions. Each repetition was a promise to himself, a commitment to excellence, a statement that mediocrity was never an option. As the morning stretched into afternoon, the boy's hands were raw, his muscles aching, yet his spirit remained unbroken. He adjusted his stance, recalibrated his focus, and shot again, each attempt sharper, each motion more refined than the last. Failure was merely feedback, and he was a student of perseverance. In those early hours, he was learning a lesson that transcended basketball, that greatness is born from obsession, discipline, and the courage to outwork everyone else, especially when no one is watching. By the time the sun bathed the court in golden light, Kobe had shot hundreds of baskets, moved, fallen, and risen countless times. Each drop of sweat was a testament to his unwavering dedication. Each missed basket was a stepping stone toward mastery. And in the quiet triumph of his solitary morning, the first chapter of the Mamba Mentality was being written, not in fame, not in applause, but in the silent, determined heartbeat of a boy who refused to be ordinary. Even as he finally walked home, exhausted yet invigorated, clutching the worn ball like a talisman, there was certainty in his young heart. The world would demand more than talent alone. It would demand obsession, sacrifice, and relentless pursuit. And he was ready to give it all. In that solitary dawn, under the rising sun of possibility, a legend was quietly beginning. One dribble, one shot, one dream at a time. The afternoon sun had climbed high, spilling light across the suburban streets, yet young Kobe's focus remained undisturbed. Sweat dripped down his temples, soaking the collar of his jersey, but his hands were steady, fingers gripping the ball with the kind of confidence that seemed almost unnatural for a boy of 12. Each dribble, each pivot, each leap toward the rim was more than movement. It was intention, a silent vow to himself that mediocrity would never touch him. From the sidewalk, a neighbor paused, coffee cup in hand, noticing the tiny figure moving with such precision and power. "He's something else," she murmured. And she wasn't wrong. There was a fluidity in his motion, a rhythm to his jumps and spins, that hinted at a natural gift, yet it was far from effortless. Every shot was a testament not just to innate ability, but to obsession. Countless hours spent perfecting what others might attempt once and forget. Kobe imagined the stands filling with people, each fan's cheer amplifying his heartbeat. In his mind, the ball sailed perfectly through the hoop again and again, the crowd erupting in applause. Each victory a rehearsal for a reality that seemed both distant and inevitable. He visualized defenders, imagined them trying to block him, and countered them in a perfect dance, a mental choreography that would take years of discipline to match in the real game. His mother peeked through the garage door, her expression a mix of awe and worry. She knew this drive was extraordinary, yet she also saw the intensity in her son's eyes, the same eyes that would never accept a single shot as good enough. She didn't interfere. She only watched, understanding that this first glimpse of talent was fragile, precious, and fueled by a fire that would define his entire life. The neighborhood kids, who had gathered silently at the edge of the court, whispered among themselves. Some were envious, some inspired, but all understood that what they were witnessing was rare. A boy pushing past the boundaries of childhood, stepping into a space where skill and obsession intertwined. They didn't yet know that this boy would one day dominate arenas, break records, and redefine what it meant to be a competitor. But in that moment, they saw the outline of greatness forming, shaped in sweat, discipline, and relentless focus. Kobe's body moved almost mechanically, yet each motion carried emotion. The boy's hands remembered the thousands of dribbles, the twists and pivots, the exact angle of each jump shot. Muscle memory was building an invisible bridge between imagination and reality. Every missed shot was studied, noted, analyzed, not with disappointment, but with a curiosity and hunger that could never be satisfied with ordinary results. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the court in shades of orange and gold, Kobe felt the subtle satisfaction of progress. He had landed more shots today than ever before, felt the rhythm of the game flowing through him, a pulse that connected his mind, body, and heart. But satisfaction was fleeting. He understood instinctively that talent alone could not sustain him. Talent, without obsession and relentless effort, was fragile, temporary, fleeting. That evening, as he walked home carrying the worn basketball, his mind replayed the movements, the shots, the imagined victories. He felt something stir inside, a recognition that this first glimpse of his potential was both exhilarating and terrifying. There was promise here, yes, but also responsibility. To nurture it, to shape it, to refine it, and to endure the long, unglamorous hours required to transform raw talent into something extraordinary. And so, under the fading sunlight of a suburban afternoon, Kobe Bryant's first real recognition of his own potential quietly settled into his heart. It was not a triumph celebrated by the world, but an internal acknowledgement that greatness was possible, that the path would be grueling, yet the reward would be worth every ounce of effort. This was the moment when talent met obsession, the first glimpse of what would become a legend. The night had fallen like a velvet curtain over Lower Merion, and most of the neighborhood had already retreated indoors, lights dimmed, TV screens glowing, the scent of dinners filling the air. But not Kobe. The gym lights burned bright, stark against the dark sky, illuminating the polished hardwood like a stage set for destiny. Alone, he bounced the ball, each sound echoing through the empty space, a heartbeat in rhythm with his unyielding determination. Hours passed unnoticed. Each shot he took was measured, deliberate, honed to near perfection. Sweat slicked his skin, dripped from his temples, and dampened his shirt, yet he barely felt it. Pain was irrelevant. Fatigue was merely a test, a challenge to endure, a signal that he was growing stronger, sharper, faster. Every basket missed was studied, analyzed, catalogued, each error a stepping stone toward mastery. The gym smelled of aged wood and rubber, a faint trace of varnish mixed with decades of worn sneakers, and the faint tang of determination. Shadows danced on the walls as the ball arced toward the rim again and again, sometimes swishing perfectly, sometimes rattling the net. Kobe didn't celebrate the successes. He only noted them, aware that perfection was not a single moment, but a continuum of effort, focus, and relentless practice. Time became irrelevant. Outside, cars passed, doors closed, the world slept. But inside this solitary arena, a young boy was shaping the blueprint of a champion. The muscles in his arms memorized the perfect flick of the wrist, the legs adapted to the precise timing of every leap. The mind orchestrated every movement with exacting control. It was obsession, yes, but it was also education, a curriculum written in sweat and grit rather than ink and paper. He paused briefly to catch his breath, chest heaving, arms trembling, but the pause was fleeting. The court demanded more, and his imagination had not yet exhausted its scenarios. He pictured defenders closing in, imagined the roar of a stadium, the squeak of sneakers on polished hardwood, the echoes of applause bouncing off walls taller than the gym he now stood in. Every imagined victory sharpened his focus, fortified his resolve. Kobe's eyes burned with quiet intensity. He knew these long nights were where legends were born, where ordinary talent was transformed into extraordinary skill. Each repetition was a small victory over mediocrity, each failure a lesson in resilience. The world outside the gym would never understand these hours, the sacrifices, the isolation, the quiet obsession, but that didn't matter. They weren't for anyone else. They were for him, for the vision he carried in his heart. Minutes stretched into hours, and the gym became a universe of one, a sanctuary where the outside world ceased to exist. Every bounce of the ball, every swoosh of the net, every motion of his body was a conversation with greatness, a dialogue that demanded nothing less than perfection. There was no room for shortcuts, no space for hesitation. In that silence, under the harsh fluorescent lights, Kobe was sculpting not only his body, but his mind, forging a mental toughness that would one day define him. By the time the streetlights flickered outside, signaling the lateness of the hour, Kobe had already attempted hundreds of shots, executed dozens of moves, and mentally rehearsed countless scenarios. He was exhausted, every muscle screaming, yet a quiet smile touched his lips. This was the labor of love, the quiet obsession that separated him from everyone else, the invisible work that would one day explode into visible greatness. As he finally left the gym, shoulders heavy but spirit unbroken, the night air greeted him, cool and refreshing. The world slept, oblivious to the birth of a mindset, a relentless drive, a Mamba mentality that had quietly begun in the dim glow of a lonely gym. And in that solitude, Kobe Bryant had learned an early truth. Greatness requires more than talent. It requires obsession, endurance, and the courage to outwork everyone, especially when no one is watching. The afternoon sun had barely begun to rise, yet the pressure in Kobe's chest felt heavier than any game he had imagined. At 12, he had already tasted the bitter tang of failure. The missed shots, the lost games, the moments when no one believed in him except himself. Today was no different. On the local court, surrounded by kids bigger, faster, stronger, he felt the sting of inadequacy prick at his determination. Every jump shot he took seemed to mock him, bouncing off the rim with cruel precision. Each dribble led to a misstep, each move met with resistance, each attempt a reminder that talent alone was not enough. His heart pounded, not from exertion, but from the frustration of wanting to be great and being forced to confront the reality of imperfection. Failure was not hypothetical. It was tangible, a weight pressing on his young shoulders. But Kobe's eyes did not waver. He stared at the hoop, at the court, at the imaginary crowds that his mind had conjured countless times, and something inside him hardened. This was not defeat. This was a challenge. The sting of failure, he realized, was the very fuel that would ignite his obsession, that would push him beyond the limits of ordinary ambition. Every loss, every miss, every scornful laugh from those who doubted him became a stepping stone, a lesson written in sweat and resilience. He dropped to the ground, hands on his knees, breathing heavily. Around him, the neighborhood continued its rhythm, dogs barking, cars passing, the distant hum of early morning life, but Kobe existed in a world apart. In this universe, failure was temporary, a teacher, a mirror reflecting the gaps in his skill that could, and would, be closed with relentless effort. He clenched his fists, imagining himself years in the future, dominating arenas, breaking records, standing tall above all the doubts. That vision steadied him, ignited a fire hotter than frustration. Kobe rose, shoulders squared, and picked up the ball again. Each bounce echoed in the empty court like a heartbeat, a reminder that persistence mattered more than perfection. He shot and missed. He shot again, missed once more. And yet, with every miss, his resolve grew. He examined each motion, corrected each angle, adjusted his stance, refined his timing. In the silence of the morning, he was teaching himself something no coach, no fan, no commentator could: resilience in the face of defeat. The other kids began to notice, some snickering at his persistence, others watching in awe. They saw a boy who refused to quit, who transformed frustration into determination. Kobe was learning that early failures were not indicators of weakness. They were opportunities to train the mind, to strengthen character, to forge the kind of relentless spirit that would one day become legendary. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, shadows shifting across the court. Kobe's arms ached, his legs trembled, but his focus never faltered. With every failed shot, he learned. With every lost game, he adapted. And in that quiet confrontation with his own limitations, the seed of the Mamba mentality grew stronger. It whispered a promise. Greatness is not born. It is forged through struggle, persistence, and the courage to rise every time you fall. By the end of the morning, the boy walked home, bruised and tired, but unbroken. His gaze was unwavering, his mind already running through strategies, rehearsing shots, imagining victories. Early failures had not defeated him. They had shaped him. And in that shaping, the foundation of a legend was quietly, irrevocably being laid, one that would inspire the world, teaching that failure is not the end, but the beginning of something extraordinary. The gym was quiet except for the rhythmic sound of the basketball echoing against the hard wood, a steady heartbeat that mirrored the pulse of determination coursing through Kobe's young body. Today had been brutal, missed shots, clumsy turnovers, moments when his teammates outperformed him. But he did not see failure. He saw information, insight, a map of what he needed to learn, a blueprint of the gap between potential and mastery. He sat on the bench for a brief moment, wiping sweat from his brow, eyes fixed on the hoop, as if it were both his opponent and his teacher. Each lost game, each mistake, whispered a lesson if only he was willing to listen. The basketball court had become his classroom, and Kobe, its most devoted student. There was no room for excuses. Every shortcoming was a reflection of preparation, focus, and willpower. With a deep inhale, he picked the ball up again and began to rehearse each missed move in slow motion. The angle of his jump, the flick of his wrist, the trajectory of the ball. Every detail was scrutinized, analyzed, and adjusted. Failure had a voice, and Kobe had learned to translate it into instruction. The losses of today were the victories of tomorrow in disguise, and he could almost feel the transformation taking place with each repetition. He imagined himself on a bigger stage. The bright lights, the roaring crowds, the pressure of expectation. Every missed shot in the past became a rehearsal for success, a lesson etched into muscle memory. He visualized defenders, crowds, and critical moments, running through scenarios over and over until the mistakes of yesterday had no power over him. Every challenge was a teacher, every setback a lesson in patience, persistence, and strategy. The gym, empty and quiet, became an arena of focus. Shadows of the past losses lingered, but instead of discouraging him, they fueled a sharper, more determined Kobe. He bounced the ball, pivoted, shot, and missed again, but this time with understanding. Each error had a solution. Each mistake was no longer a weight on his spirit, but a tool to craft resilience, intelligence, and confidence. His mother peeked in from the doorway, seeing him replaying the day's failures in real time, reshaping them into a learning journey. She smiled faintly, recognizing that this process, turning losses into lessons, was exactly what would define him. Not raw talent alone, not luck or circumstance, but the ability to convert every disappointment into forward motion. This was the early essence of what would later become the Mamba Mentality. Kobe's eyes burned with quiet intensity. The court, once a place of competition, had transformed into a laboratory for growth. He studied each move, imagined every outcome, rehearsed perfection, and prepared himself to face challenges far greater than any he had known. Losses were no longer punishments. They were stepping stones, shaping his body, his mind, and his spirit with relentless precision. Hours slipped by. The sun outside dipped lower, casting long shadows through the gym windows. Yet inside, time was irrelevant. Kobe's focus was total, unwavering, and transformative. Each shot, each adjustment, each imagined correction brought him closer to mastery. He understood that greatness was not a destination but a process, and the process demanded discipline, persistence, and an unwavering belief in his own potential. By the end of the night, exhausted yet energized, Kobe stepped out of the gym and into the cool evening air. The losses of today were no longer scars. They were lessons, gifts wrapped in frustration and sweat, waiting to be unpacked through effort and resilience. He carried them with him, not as burdens, but as tools, preparing him for the countless challenges, victories, and triumphs that lay ahead. In this quiet conversion of failure into wisdom, the boy who would become a legend was quietly, relentlessly crafting his destiny. The night had settled over Lower Merion, quiet and almost sacred, as if the world itself was giving Kobe the space to think, to imagine, to create. The basketball lay beside him, momentarily forgotten, while he sat cross-legged on the polished court floor, eyes closed, mind racing faster than his legs ever could. This was no ordinary practice. This was the training of the mind, the rehearsal of every moment yet to come, the envisioning of greatness before it existed. In his imagination, the arenas were massive, lights blazing, fans roaring in a tide of sound so overwhelming that it could crush a lesser spirit. Yet Kobe saw himself standing tall, calm, controlled, moving through defenders with a grace and precision that felt both impossible and inevitable. Every pass, every pivot, every jump shot was meticulously rehearsed in his mind. The ball spun through the air perfectly, landing in the hoop each time, a symphony of motion only he could see. This mental practice was grueling in its own way. Each scenario demanded focus. Each imagined challenge tested his patience and resolve. He ran plays, executed impossible moves, countered every defensive strategy his imagination could conjure. He visualized exhaustion, pressure, and doubt, and overcame them all with perfect execution. This was not fantasy, it was preparation. He was forging neural pathways in his brain, creating muscle memory before the body had even acted. The glow of the gym lights reflected off the polished floor, mirroring the clarity of his thoughts. Kobe could see the details, the sweat glistening on opponents' brows, the squeak of sneakers on hardwood, the shadows cast by the glaring arena lights. Every detail mattered. Every detail was rehearsed, memorized, internalized. In this quiet, private universe, the boy was learning a lesson few ever understand. The mind could train the body to achieve the impossible long before the physical act ever occurred. His mother's voice floated faintly from the hallway, a gentle reminder of dinner waiting at home, but he barely noticed. She knew better than to interrupt. She knew the power of these sessions, the transformation taking place in the silent hours of thought and imagination. Every young boy dreams, but Kobe was living the dream before it even arrived, shaping his destiny with nothing more than focus, visualization, and relentless intent. The court became a stage, his mind the director, the players, and the audience all at once. He practiced not just scoring, but handling pressure, recovering from mistakes, reacting to chaos with calm precision. He imagined the crowd's roar turning to silence at his perfect execution, then erupting again in celebration. He imagined the championship, the trophies, the applause, and felt it all as if it were happening now. Each imagined victory built confidence. Each visualized defeat taught resilience. Each mental rehearsal sharpened skills beyond the limits of ordinary practice. Hours passed, unnoticed. His body rested while his mind labored tirelessly, spinning plays, correcting errors, rehearsing victories. In this interplay of imagination and intention, Kobe was laying the foundation for what would later be called the Mamba Mentality. It was the understanding that preparation, obsession, and visualization could turn the improbable into reality, that the mind could carry the body to heights it might never reach otherwise. Finally, he opened his eyes, a slow smile tracing across his lips. The basketball at his feet was no longer just a ball. It was a tool, a bridge between imagination and reality, a vessel of potential now magnified by mental mastery. The boy who had once practiced endlessly without a crowd, without applause, now understood a powerful truth. The mind is the first battlefield, and victory begins there, long before the world even knows the game has started. As he left the gym that night, the air cool against his skin, Kobe carried with him a quiet certainty. Greatness is envisioned first, trained in solitude, and executed flawlessly when the world demands it. The seed of mental discipline, planted in the hours of quiet visualization, would grow to become a force that no physical skill alone could rival. The gym was dark now, except for the soft glare of overhead lights reflecting on the polished floor. Kobe's legs ached, his arms trembled, and his chest heaved with exhaustion. Every muscle in his young body screamed for rest, but he did not stop. Pain was no longer an obstacle. It was a companion, a teacher, a measure of how far he had come and how far he still needed to go. Sweat dripped in rivers down his face, soaking his jersey and making his shoes slick with moisture. Each bounce of the ball, each leap, each shot required effort beyond what most could endure. Yet in that struggle, he found clarity. He discovered that fatigue was not weakness. It was a signal of growth, an invitation to push past limits, to find strength where none seemed to exist. He had fallen countless times, twisted his ankle, scraped his knees on the unforgiving hardwood. Every injury, every ache, every sore muscle had become a lesson. He learned to listen to his body, to challenge it without breaking it, to move through discomfort with focus and grace. Pain became the forge in which discipline and resilience were tempered. Kobe's mind raced as fast as his body moved. He imagined the arenas, the roaring crowds, the high-stakes moments, and let that vision carry him forward. Fatigue was temporary. The dream was eternal. Each missed basket, each failed attempt, each gasp for air was fuel, propelling him toward the mastery he craved. The discomfort reminded him he was alive, striving, improving. Without pain, there would be no triumph. Without fatigue, no growth. The silence of the gym amplified the rhythm of his breath and the bounce of the ball. Each repetition was deliberate, calculated, a negotiation between desire and endurance. He ran drills, practiced free throws, executed complex moves with precision, even as his body threatened to surrender. This was no longer just physical training. It was mental warfare, a battle against complacency, weakness, and limitation. Hours slipped by unnoticed. Shadows stretched across the floor, mirroring the journey of a young boy transforming into a legend. He embraced the ache in his muscles, the burn in his lungs, the relentless fatigue, because he knew that greatness demanded sacrifice. Comfort had no place here. Only determination, only focus, only unyielding effort. By the time Kobe finally paused, leaning against the backboard for support, he was drenched, exhausted, yet exhilarated. Pain had not defeated him. It had refined him. It had revealed the depths of his perseverance, the sharpness of his resolve, the boundless potential of his commitment. Each ache and strain became a testament to a young athlete's obsession, a physical signature of the discipline that would one day define the Mamba mentality. Walking home in the cool night air, muscles trembling but spirit unbroken, Kobe carried with him more than fatigue. He carried understanding. He had learned that pain was temporary, but greatness was eternal. He had learned that to rise above, to excel beyond ordinary limits, one must not only endure discomfort, but embrace it, let it shape the body, sharpen the mind, and steel the soul. In that quiet embrace of struggle, a legend continued to form, unyielding, determined, unstoppable. The gym smelled of varnished wood and sweat, a familiar scent that had become a second home to Kobe. But tonight he wasn't alone. A coach, a mentor who had seen countless young players rise and fall, stepped onto the court. His presence was calm but commanding, a steadying force in the chaos of a mind obsessed with perfection. Kobe's gaze lifted, eyes wide, drinking in every word, every gesture, every correction offered with a subtle authority. "Focus," the coach said quietly, yet firmly. "Every movement matters. Every decision counts." Kobe nodded, absorbing the guidance like a sponge, yet refusing to relinquish control over his own destiny. He knew that while advice could illuminate the path, the journey would be his alone. Together, they ran drills, dissected footwork, analyzed shooting mechanics. The coach pushed him hard, correcting even the smallest imperfection, emphasizing not just technique, but mindset. Each word was a lesson, each critique a challenge. And Kobe thrived. He wanted guidance, craved it even, because it sharpened his skills, refined his instincts, and strengthened his discipline. Yet even in mentorship, he was relentless. Every correction was an opportunity, every suggestion a new way to challenge himself. He executed moves repeatedly, perfecting them, internalizing lessons until they became instinctual. He asked questions, pushed boundaries, sought knowledge, and in doing so, demonstrated a maturity beyond his years. The mentor watched silently, occasionally nodding in approval, occasionally offering a small correction. He saw in Kobe not just talent, but obsession, a fire that refused to be dimmed. This was no ordinary player. This was a mind and body united in pursuit of excellence. The mentor understood that guidance alone would not create a legend. The young boy's relentless dedication would do that. Hours passed. The gym's lights flickered, the clock hands moved imperceptibly. Yet Kobe remained immersed in the work. He absorbed wisdom like a sponge, but each lesson was filtered through his unique obsession, his unyielding drive to improve. He visualized the application of these skills in arenas far beyond his current world, imagining defenders, crowds, and championship moments, integrating guidance into his personal vision of mastery. By the end of the night, Kobe stood alone again, drenched in sweat, muscles sore, but mind sharper, focus clearer, and confidence deeper. Mentorship had provided direction, but obsession had provided the fuel. He had learned that guidance was invaluable, yet greatness required an internal fire that no coach could instill. It was something he had to ignite, nurture, and sustain himself. Walking home under the quiet stars, Kobe held onto the lessons, replaying them, integrating them into his mental rehearsals. Each piece of advice was a brick in the foundation of his future, each correction a step toward mastery. In that mentorship, he understood a critical truth. The road to greatness is never walked alone, but the journey is always driven by the fire within. The guidance lights the way, but obsession carries you forward, and in that fusion, a legend continued to rise. The world outside was still cloaked in darkness, streets empty, windows closed, the quiet of dawn barely stirring. Yet inside the gym, lights glowed bright against the polished hardwood, casting long reflections of a boy whose obsession eclipsed sleep itself. Kobe Bryant was already in motion, ball in hand, heart pounding, mind sharper than any clock ticking outside. Before the sun had risen, He had begun a ritual of relentless practice that no one else could witness. No applause to reward his labor, only the silent acknowledgement of his own drive. Each dribble, each pivot, each jump was executed with precision, as if time itself had slowed to accommodate his obsession. Sweat streamed down his face, yet he barely noticed. Fatigue was irrelevant. Sleep could wait. There were no shortcuts, no excuses, no compromises. Every movement was deliberate. Every shot a rehearsal for moments that had not yet arrived, but would demand perfection when they did. He visualized the arena before him, the crowd roaring, lights blinding, the pressure suffocating. But in this solitude, he was calm, composed, untouchable. Each imagined defender, each calculated move, each flawless shot reinforced the understanding that greatness was not granted. It was earned in the quiet, in the hours before the world stirred. Every early morning repetition was a declaration. Mediocrity had no place here. The gym echoed with the rhythmic bounce of the basketball, each sound a heartbeat in the symphony of his obsession. He ran drills repeatedly, refining footwork, perfecting shot mechanics, testing endurance. Mistakes were cataloged, studied, and corrected immediately. Even in isolation, Kobe demanded accountability from himself, a standard so high that no external validation could match it. Outside, the faint light of dawn began to creep along the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, signaling a new day. But Kobe was already ahead of the world, ahead of the schedule, ahead of his peers. In these pre-dawn hours, he found the rarest of gifts: uninterrupted time, absolute focus, and the freedom to sculpt every detail of his craft without distraction. The physical exertion was immense, muscles screaming in protest, yet he persisted. Each failure was not discouragement but feedback, a guide toward refinement. He embraced the ache, welcomed the fatigue, and allowed it to sharpen his concentration and deepen his resolve. Sleep and comfort were distant thoughts. The court, the ball, the pursuit of perfection demanded everything he could give. By the time the sun's first rays broke over the horizon, lighting the suburban streets with the promise of a new day, Kobe had already poured hours into shaping not just his skills, but his mentality. Every shot, every pivot, every mental rehearsal had reinforced a single truth: greatness is forged in the hours when no one is watching, when the body is tired, the mind restless, and the heart relentless. As he finally paused, leaning against the rim to catch his breath, the boy smiled faintly. The world would soon awaken, oblivious to the silent work that had been done, the sacrifices made, the obsession exercised. But he did not need recognition. He had already measured success by his effort, by the fire that refused to dim, and by the knowledge that he was training his mind, body, and spirit for a destiny that only he could define. The night stretched endlessly, quiet and still, leaving Kobe alone with the echo of his own thoughts and the rhythmic bounce of the basketball. There was no crowd, no applause, no cheering fans, just the soft hum of the lights above and the pounding of his own heartbeat. Yet in this isolation, something extraordinary was being forged: mental toughness, a relentless focus, and an unbreakable will that would one day define him. Every shot he took demanded complete attention. One lapse in focus, 1 second of distraction, and the ball would miss the rim. But Kobe didn't allow that. Each miss was analyzed, each movement recalibrated, each decision scrutinized with a meticulousness that bordered on obsession. He had learned that skill alone was not enough. The mind had to be as sharp, disciplined, and resilient as the body. Time seemed irrelevant. Minutes passed unnoticed as he rehearsed plays in his head, imagined defenders closing in, calculated angles, and perfected maneuvers. The gym became a battlefield where he fought not opponents, but his own doubts, fears, and impatience. He challenged himself with every jump, every dribble, every shot, pushing the boundaries of his endurance and focus. Fatigue was welcome. It was a test of will, a signal that he was growing stronger. Outside, the world slept. The streetlights cast long, faint shadows across the empty suburban streets. No one could see the quiet intensity, the obsessive drive, the mental warfare taking place in that solitary gym. But Kobe didn't need validation. Greatness was not performed for an audience. It was earned in the crucible of solitude, in the relentless confrontation with one's own limitations. He paused briefly, chest heaving, hands gripping the basketball like a lifeline, eyes closed as he visualized the moments he would one day face on the biggest stages. Each imagined scenario, from buzzer beaters to championship games, was rehearsed with precision, each movement predicted and perfected. He felt the pressure, the doubt, the expectation, and met it all with calm confidence. In isolation, he was learning the hardest lessons: patience, resilience, and the power of a focused mind. As the hours dragged on, his body screamed in protest, but his spirit remained unyielding. Kobe embraced discomfort, welcomed the ache, and let it temper his resolve. He understood that mental toughness was cultivated through endurance, through facing challenges without support, without recognition, without reward, through confronting the silence and continuing to fight anyway. By the time dawn approached, pale light seeping through the windows, Kobe had trained not only his body, but his mind. Each repetition, each visualization, each moment of self-discipline was a brick in the foundation of the Mamba mentality. He had discovered a truth that few would ever truly understand. Mental toughness is born in isolation, tested in adversity, and proven through consistent, relentless effort. Finally, he left the gym, body exhausted, mind razor-sharp, heart resolute. The quiet streets of Lower Merion greeted him as if nothing had happened, yet inside him, everything had changed. He had trained his mind to be unshakable, to thrive under pressure, and to never yield to doubt. In the solitude of that night, a young boy had begun to master the one skill that would ultimately distinguish him as a legend: the unbreakable power of mental focus. The neighborhood streets were alive with laughter and chatter, children riding bikes, parents exchanging greetings, the world bustling with ordinary life. But Kobe was absent from it all. The invitations to play, to hang out, to simply enjoy the carefree moments of childhood had been declined, left behind like a forgotten shadow. His court, his ball, and his relentless drive had replaced playgrounds, sleepovers, and idle fun. Sacrifice had become a constant companion. Even at school, during breaks or free periods, his mind often drifted to the court. While others played casually or shared jokes, Kobe analyzed angles, planned moves, envisioned a perfect shot, and imagined opponents he would one day face. Friends were a luxury, social life a distraction. His priority was singular, mastery. Every choice to stay late in the gym, every moment spent alone rehearsing, was a brick in the foundation of a dream far bigger than any ordinary desire for acceptance. He felt the pangs of loneliness occasionally, a subtle ache beneath the surface, yet it never deterred him. Instead, he reframed it as fuel. While others wasted hours in leisure, he was building skill, resilience, and vision. The absence of applause, companionship, and recognition only reinforced the depth of his obsession. Each moment sacrificed became a step closer to greatness. The quiet of the early evening gym was both comforting and challenging. No distractions, no games of chance, no external validation, only the rhythm of the ball, the squeak of sneakers on the polished floor, and the pounding of his own heartbeat. Here, he confronted his priorities head-on. Success required sacrifice, comfort was the enemy, and focus demanded isolation from the ordinary joys of childhood. Kobe's mother often watched silently from the doorway, understanding the invisible cost of his obsession. She saw the empty spaces in his social life, the skipped birthdays, the moments he traded for practice. Yet she also recognized the depth of his commitment, the unparalleled dedication that no ordinary child could maintain. She knew that this sacrifice was molding something extraordinary, something the world would later witness and marvel at. As the night wore on, the echoes of the abandoned social world outside seemed to fade, replaced by the quiet conviction of a boy shaping his destiny. Each shot, each pivot, each repetition became a testament to choices made, paths chosen, and dreams pursued with unwavering intensity. Social approval, fleeting pleasure, and trivial distractions held no sway over the singular focus driving him forward. By the time Kobe left the gym, shoulders heavy, body fatigued, yet spirit unbroken, the quiet streets seemed to mirror the solitude he had chosen. This was the cost of obsession, the price of greatness. While others reveled in fleeting joys, he built endurance, sharpened skill, and nurtured a mental toughness that would one day be legendary. The sacrifices of today were investments in the victories of tomorrow, a principle he would carry throughout his life, a cornerstone of the Mamba mentality. And as he walked home under the pale glow of streetlights, he understood something profound. Greatness demanded choices, discipline, and the courage to embrace isolation, not as punishment, but as a tool, a companion, and a guide to the extraordinary life he was destined to lead. The gym smelled of sweat, polish, and determination as Kobe's legs shook beneath him, muscles burning from countless repetitions. He had already spent hours on the court, yet he refused to stop. Pain was a signal, a challenge, a reminder that growth required pushing beyond the body's perceived limits. Every leap, every sprint, every shot was a negotiation with his own endurance. Fatigue begged for surrender, but he ignored it. He imagined defenders closing in with blinding speed, imagined the roar of a packed arena, and let those visions propel him forward. His arms ached from constant shooting. His legs trembled with exertion. Yet in the intensity, he found clarity. Each failure, each miss, was not a reason to rest. It was a reason to dig deeper, to push harder, to redefine the boundaries of possibility. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes, soaking his jersey. But each drop was a testament to relentless effort, a symbol of a boy refusing mediocrity. His body, a temple of discipline, was being sculpted through pain, repetition, and obsession. Each repetition was a deliberate choice to endure, each drill a meditation in resilience. He ran the length of the court again, feet pounding against the polished floor, lungs burning with exertion. He jumped, pivoted, shot, and landed with precision, over and over, until muscle memory replaced conscious thought. In those moments, he transcended the limits of ordinary training. Pushing beyond physical boundaries was no longer just exercise. It was a mental declaration that nothing, not fatigue, not pain, not doubt, could stand in the way of greatness. The quiet gym became a sanctuary of discipline. Shadows stretched across the floor, echoing the hours of effort, the countless sacrifices, and the relentless drive of a boy who would not settle for anything less than excellence. Each drop of sweat, each trembling muscle, each gasping breath was evidence of a young athlete shaping his destiny with his own hands, refusing shortcuts, refusing comfort, refusing defeat. Kobe paused briefly, heart racing, vision blurring with exertion. He could have stopped, could have given in to the ache, could have let fatigue claim victory, but he did not. Instead, he pushed again, each jump higher, each shot sharper, each movement more precise. In that intensity, he discovered a truth. Greatness is born at the edge of exhaustion, nurtured in discomfort, and cemented by the refusal to yield. As the night stretched into early morning, the boy who had arrived with tired limbs now stood victorious, not in the sense of winning a game, but in conquering his own limits. He had taken the body to its breaking point and discovered strength beyond what he had known. In pushing beyond physical boundaries, Kobe was also forging mental toughness, resilience, and the unshakable belief that nothing in the world could stop him once he committed fully. Walking home in the dim glow of streetlights, every muscle trembling, every step a reminder of effort, he understood a profound truth. True greatness requires pushing beyond what the body thinks it can endure, transforming pain into power, fatigue into focus, and limits into opportunities. This lesson, learned in the silence of a gym far before the applause of arenas, would define him, shaping the essence of the Mamba mentality. The basketball court was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of overhead lights, each reflection dancing on the polished hardwood. Kobe knelt, hands tracing the seams of the ball, examining its weight, its texture, the subtle irregularities that most would never notice. To anyone else, it was just a ball. To him, it was a tool, a partner, a conduit for perfection. Every detail mattered, and Kobe was consumed by the relentless pursuit of mastery through meticulous observation. He rose and began shooting, analyzing the arc of each shot, the spin of the ball, the slightest shift in balance, the positioning of his fingers. Every missed shot was dissected, every slight imperfection catalogued, every adjustment executed with obsessive precision. In his mind, there was no room for carelessness, for approximation, for mediocrity. Every detail, no matter how small, held the potential to elevate a good player into a great one. Hours slipped by, unnoticed and uncounted, as Kobe repeated the same moves, the same drills, over and over, refining each action until it was instinctual. He examined the bounce of the ball against the floor, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, the trajectory of passes, imagining every possible scenario he might encounter in a real game. The smallest corrections mattered. The tiniest adjustments could mean the difference between victory and failure, greatness and obscurity. Even the lighting, the shadows, the position of the rim in relation to the backboard. He noted it all. Obsessive attention to detail became a ritual, a meditation, a way to internalize every possible variable, leaving nothing to chance. His focus was absolute, his mind sharp, every movement intentional, every repetition infused with purpose. The world outside could continue as it pleased. Here, Kobe existed entirely within the pursuit of perfection. Mistakes were not setbacks, they were information. Each error revealed a nuance previously unnoticed, an adjustment yet to be mastered. He welcomed them, analyzed them, internalized them, and practiced the corrections until the motion was flawless. Every shot, every pass, every pivot was an experiment, a study, and a rehearsal for the stage of his future greatness. By the time the first light of dawn seeped through the gym windows, Kobe had transformed the ordinary act of practice into an extraordinary symphony of precision, obsession, and mastery. Every detail had been accounted for, every movement scrutinized, and every error corrected. In this obsessive focus, he had discovered one of the most critical elements of his future success. Excellence is in the details, and mastery is born from relentless attention to the smallest things that others overlook. As he finally stepped outside, exhausted but exhilarated, the young boy understood that greatness was not an accident. It was a product of obsessive attention, meticulous refinement, and the unyielding refusal to accept anything less than perfection. Each small detail honed today would one day define him on the biggest stages, elevating him above competitors who never realized the power of precision, the importance of patience, and the transformative nature of obsession. The gym was silent, save for the bounce of the ball echoing against the polished wood and the soft, rhythmic thud of Kobe's sneakers. He was alone again, but the opponent he faced was not across the court. It was within him. Every shot, every pivot, every sprint was a duel against his own previous performance, a challenge to surpass the limits he had set just moments ago. Relentless competition with self had become his obsession, the driving force that transformed ordinary practice into extraordinary achievement. He sprinted from baseline to baseline, sweat pouring from every pore, muscles trembling, lungs burning, yet he refused to stop. Each drill was measured against the one before, every jump, every pivot, every shot meticulously compared to the standard he had set for himself. Victory was not measured in points or applause, but in incremental improvement, in the ability to outdo the person he was moments earlier. Kobe's mind was a storm of calculation and imagination. He replayed past mistakes, anticipated future challenges, and measured his every movement against an internal scoreboard no one else could see. There were no teammates to encourage him, no fans to cheer. The only applause that mattered was the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had pushed himself further, executed with greater precision, and refused to accept mediocrity. Every miss was a challenge, every perfect shot a fleeting reward. He adjusted, recalibrated, and challenged himself again, pushing past the exhaustion, the frustration, the temptation to pause. In this relentless competition, failure was never a defeat, but a stepping stone to mastery. Each repetition was a battle, each victory over fatigue a triumph of will, each small improvement of victory over the limitations of the past. The quiet gym became a laboratory for self-discipline. Shadows stretched across the floor, reflecting the relentless cycle of effort and reflection, trial and correction. He moved faster, jumped higher, reacted quicker, and executed with sharper precision than before, each action measured against the last. The relentless duel with himself sharpened not only his skills but his character, forging a mental toughness that no external challenge could replicate. By the time the first hint of morning light crept through the windows, Kobe had pushed past every previous boundary he had set. The opponent he had faced, The person he had been yesterday had been defeated, replaced by a stronger, sharper, more disciplined version of himself. This internal competition had no end, no limits, no trophies or medals, yet it was the most critical battle he could fight. Walking home with muscles aching and breath heavy, Kobe understood a profound truth. The fiercest competitor you will ever face is yourself. To rise above, to achieve the extraordinary, one must compete not against others, but against the person you were yesterday, striving to be stronger, faster, wiser, and more relentless with every passing day. In that constant, unyielding competition, a legend was quietly being forged, a boy training not for applause, but for the unbreakable excellence that would one day define him. The sun rose over Lower Merion, casting golden light through the gym windows, illuminating the polished floor and the countless marks of sweat, effort, and obsession. Kobe stood alone, ball in hand, eyes scanning the court that had witnessed years of relentless training, silent battles, and obsessive devotion. In that quiet morning, something profound had crystallized. The essence of greatness, the culmination of every sacrifice, every failure, every repetition. The Mamba mentality was no longer just a concept. It was alive, embodied in his young body, mind, and spirit. He bounced the ball slowly, deliberately, savoring the rhythm that had become the heartbeat of his obsession. Every scar, every ache, every early morning, every late-night session had been a building block, each one contributing to a foundation of unmatched discipline and unshakable focus. He remembered the countless hours of visualization, the painful repetitions, the self-imposed isolation, the relentless pursuit of perfection. And now, in the golden light of dawn, he understood that all of it had been preparing him for a life of extraordinary achievement. The lessons learned in solitude, the mastery forged through obsession, the mental toughness built in isolation, all coalesced into a singular philosophy. He understood that greatness demanded more than talent. It demanded a mind that could endure, a spirit that would never waver, and a heart that could embrace sacrifice as a privilege. Every missed shot had been a lesson, every pain a teacher, every sleepless night a step toward mastery. Kobe walked the length of the court slowly, imagining future arenas, future defenders, future championship moments. He could see the crowds, feel the pressure, anticipate the challenges. But unlike before, there was no fear, no doubt, only preparation, clarity, and confidence. The boy who had once practiced endlessly without recognition had transformed into a young man ready to face the world with a discipline and focus few could comprehend. He paused at the center of the court, cradling the ball, and closed his eyes. In that moment, the boundaries between effort and destiny blurred. Every choice, every sacrifice, every obsessive practice session converged into a singular understanding. Greatness was not accidental, nor was it gifted. It was forged through relentless focus, obsessive attention to detail, and an unyielding commitment to being better than he had been yesterday. The quiet gym seemed to whisper back, acknowledging the birth of a mindset that would define him for life. The Mamba mentality was not just about basketball, it was about life, about striving beyond limits, embracing pain and fatigue, competing relentlessly with oneself, and never settling for mediocrity. It was the embodiment of every lesson learned on that court, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt overcome. As he stepped outside into the warm morning light, the world waking around him, Kobe carried within himself a quiet certainty. He was prepared for every challenge, ready to face every opponent, and equipped to turn every setback into a stepping stone. The journey ahead would be long, grueling, and full of obstacles, but he had already mastered the most important opponent, himself. In that mastery, the legend of Kobe Bryant had quietly begun, not with fame or accolades, but with a young boy's obsession, discipline, and unbreakable will. The court behind him remained silent, yet it bore witness to the birth of something extraordinary, a mindset, a mentality, a legacy that would inspire millions for generations to come. The Mamba mentality was alive, and so was the relentless pursuit of greatness. Kobe Bryant's journey teaches us not only about basketball, but also about resilience, discipline, and mental strength. Let's look at some useful English expressions and vocabulary that naturally appear in his story. Relentless. This means never giving up, or persistent without pause. Example from the story. Kobe's relentless training turned fatigue into focus. You can use it in sentences like, she showed relentless determination in her studies. Catalyst, something that sparks change or action. In the story, every defeat became a catalyst for Kobe to improve. Example, reading that book was the catalyst for his career change. Obstacle, a barrier or challenge that prevents progress. Story usage, setbacks and injuries became obstacles that Kobe overcame with discipline. Example, fear of failure is often the biggest obstacle to success. Internalize, to fully understand and make something a part of yourself. Story usage, he internalized every critique and used it to refine his skills. Example, it's important to internalize lessons rather than just memorize them. Triumph, a great victory or achievement. Story usage, the final victory was a triumph not just of skill but of resilience. Example, graduating against all odds was a triumph for her family. By noticing these words and phrases, you can naturally expand your English vocabulary while staying motivated by Kobe's story. Relentless effort beats talent alone. Talent may open doors, but consistent, disciplined effort is what ensures you stay at the top. Like Kobe, invest countless hours into your craft, even when no one is watching. Turn setbacks into fuel. Injuries, criticism, or failures are not reasons to quit. They are opportunities to grow stronger. Let challenges ignite determination instead of fear. Obsess over details. Excellence is in the details. Small, consistent improvements accumulate into extraordinary results. Focus on mastering tiny aspects of your craft daily. Compete with yourself, not others. True growth comes from striving to be better than you were yesterday, rather than constantly comparing yourself to others. Embrace pressure as a teacher. Pressure and high-stakes situations are not enemies. They are tests of mental strength. Use them to sharpen focus and resilience. Kobe Bryant's journey reminds us that greatness is not a gift, it's a choice. It's the choice to wake up before sunrise, to push through pain, to face criticism with courage, and to compete relentlessly with yourself. Every obstacle, every failure, every moment of doubt is a stepping stone on the path to excellence. So embrace your challenges. Treat your setbacks as lessons. Let every drop of sweat, every late night, every sacrifice remind you that your potential is limitless. You have the power to define your destiny. The question is, will you rise above and claim it? Just like Kobe, the answer is in your relentless pursuit, your unwavering focus, and your unbreakable will.